Hello, brothers and sisters in Christ. This is Yoko's Narrowgate channel. I previously talked about how my mother used to make a living by reading sutras, and I've come across some old photos from those days, so I'd like to share them with you. I thought it might somehow explain why I was so afraid of Buddhism and Shintoism. My mother lived a life of Buddhism and Shintoism. It seems that some families these days don't have Buddhist altars, but when I was a child, I think almost every family had a Buddhist altar. It was the same at my household. However, in addition to the Buddhist altar, my house also had a large Shinto altar as shown in this photo. I hated that altar and hated going into the room where it was kept. There was a big demon sitting in the back. When my mother was still a junior high school student, she would go around with her adopted mother, visiting from house to house, reading sutras and receiving offerings. I looked at the altar and thought there was no God there. I have always been overwhelmed by not only Buddhist altar but also large Shinto altars, and since I was little, I have been afraid of Shinto altars. There was no way there was God in a place like this. There was just a scary demon glaring at me. This old woman who raised my mother was a Buddhist priest. I used to call her Grandma. I now wonder why she became a priest. I guess that may have been the only way to survive. After 25 years of prayer in the last 3 days of her life, my mother became. Ever since I became a Christian at the age of 22, I had preached the gospel to my mother, who was still passionate about Buddhism and Shintoism over and over again. It was a chanting the Nembutsu into a horse ear. One day, my mother was diagnosed with cancer and started fighting the disease. I continued to tell her that I wanted her to go to heaven when she died, but my mother didn't accept Jesus. One night, my father called me and said that my mother had been in the hospital for a few days and that she was in a critical condition. My mother told my father not to tell Yoko, so he did not call me right away. I rushed to the hospital, but on the way to the hospital on the bullet train, I cried the whole time. I didn't have time left. I asked God to save my mother. He has made everything beautiful in its time. That day, I went to see my mother in the hospital and read John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. My mother said, I believe, I believe. And listen to me sing the hymn, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. After my mother accepted Jesus Christ, she became unconscious for almost 3 days and then peacefully went to heaven. I thought of these two scriptures. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Ecclesiastes 3:11. And commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Psalm 37:5. I felt truly grateful to God. Thank you very much for listening to me. This channel is intended to reach out to Christians in the world so that they can pray for Japan and the Japanese people. If you would like, please refer Yoko's icon here on the right to your Japanese friends who are non-Christians.